Okay. Let's talk about Sarah. Now, I'm going to do my best to, from a psychological standpoint, explain Sarah's behavior because she was very present in this episode. So Sarah, as a reminder, went on a very good date with Matt last week, one-on-one, and was very transparent and vulnerable, all the things that Matt wants. And this week, it wasn't her turn. So she's back at the, whatever you call it, the cottage or whatever, and other women are going on a group date and then individual dates with him. And she cannot deal with the fact that he's with somebody else after she had such a meaningful date with him. Like she missed a memo on The Bachelor. Maybe she's never seen The Bachelor before or whatever, but she couldn't tolerate him being with other women. So what she does is she, in the middle of his one-on-one date with Katie, somehow, the producers drove her, somehow ends up interrupting that date, which is off campus. And, she shows up and says, I really need to talk to you, Matt. And Matt's like, okay, what's going on? And she goes, I just feel so connected with you. This is really hard for me. The pressure, I can't take it. And Matt is like the perfect savior. I do care about you. We did have that connection. Don't worry about it. Let's make out a little bit. And then you go home. Fine. She goes home. The girls are pissed, obviously, for good reason. And Queen Bee, she is so in her element here. Queen Victoria, not Queen Bee. Queen Victoria is so in her element because she can be mean and people like it, right? So all of a sudden she can be herself and people are like, yeah, Queen, get her crazy. At least you're not being crazy at us. So Queen Victoria is like on point in her element, attacking Sarah for having interrupted that date. Day 2 shows up the next day. And Sarah never comes down the stairs. So Matt comes to go grab, I think it was Serene, to go on his date with her, and Sarah doesn't come down the stairs. Now the women are super angry. Where is she? What is she doing? And Matt, the savior, goes, I know what to do, and goes upstairs, does a little making out, a little bit of talking her through, telling her how much he cares about her, and makes Sarah feel better. So Matt goes on his date with Serene, and now the women and Queen Victoria are super outraged and just lay into Sarah, who eventually comes down the stairs. It's enough drama that Sarah actually makes the decision, I have to go home, and the episode ends. So if you watched it, I think you probably agree with the women that Sarah was super manipulative, conniving, and sort of just hijacked the entire show to get more one-on-one time with Matt. So if you sort of calculated it, she had her appropriate one-on-one date, and then on this episode had 2 separate one-on-one interactions with him, which apparently were pretty long. So they're super angry. So I agree. So here's what I'll say is I do think that she probably historically has gotten her way with men by being the super demure, vulnerable, oh, woe is me, take care of me. I think that's her shtick, and I think it's probably been very successful for her. So I think subconsciously she defaults to that when she wants attention and affection. I also think that Matt's default is to be the savior, the protector. I think it feels good to be able to swoop in and immediately add value and take away someone's pain. I would tell Matt, run for the freaking hills, though, as it relates to a long-term relationship with her. That demure, woe is me, I'm so weak and vulnerable attitude is super attractive right off the bat. 3 years down the road, it's a freaking nightmare, and it would be so exhausting and taxing for him to constantly be having to save her all the time, right? That is just not how a relationship works. So put that aside. I do want to play devil's advocate as far as the malicious intent piece of the Sarah story. You have to understand there's a phenomena called misattribution of arousal, a psychological phenomena. Our bodies are very simple. Things either elevate or they depress, they go down. So, if you are scared or excited or surprised or happy or thrilled or anxious, physiologically, it's very similar. Cortisol is up, heart rate is up, your breathing rate is up, you may sweat, right? All those things are all the same. So our evaluation of whether or not we are scared, aroused, happy, surprised is all mental. It's our attribution of trying to figure out what is that symptom. The same is true if you're depressed. Your physiological symptoms are very similar if you are meditating and calm, if you're asleep or going to sleep, you're really tired, or if you're super depressed. It's very similar, and it's our brains that go, right, oh, this is depression because I'm really upset about X, Y, or Z, or because I feel really lonely, right? We attribute that. So there's a really famous study where they had a subject in an experiment walk across a really high bridge. And in the middle of that bridge, they had the subject rate the attractiveness of another person, right? When they're really high off the ground. And then they had that same person, they had a lot of people rate the attractiveness of this person in the middle of the bridge. And then they moved the person to the other side of the bridge on solid ground, and they had a bunch of people go and rate that person's attractiveness. And consistently, both male and female rated the person, the experimenter in the middle of the bridge as much more attractive. The reason why was because in the middle of that bridge, they were scared, right? Their heart rate is up, they're sweating, they're breathing quickly, there's blood pressure's up, and they struggle to know, am I turned on or am I scared? We're not good at differentiating the two, right? Because the physiological symptoms are the same. So take that concept and apply it to The Bachelor. Here you have hundreds of cameras or people, right? And all these women, all the millions of people across the world are going to watch you, right when you're on this date. So you are going to be physiologically aroused. And it's difficult for these women, I think, to understand, am I aroused because I like Matt, or am I aroused because the world is watching? And they can't separate the two, right? Am I aroused, or am I nervous, or am I scared, or am I whatever? And I think what happened with Sarah is she misattributes that, just like all the women do, right? They're all head over heels in love with Matt because of this. And so she overshares. And she talked about her dad who was dying of ALS, which is a really true, sad, vulnerable story for her. And I think she overstepped. And then she goes back to her room and calms down and goes, oh my God, I just shared this much with this man, and here he is with somebody else. And that is devastating and hard, and I think real for her, that experience is difficult. And I think she couldn't take it and needed to leave the show because of that. And so for me, I wouldn't put it in the malicious bucket. So that's my thoughts. On a higher note, I have a new drinking game for The Bachelor. Take a shot every time Matt gives an impromptu speech. You will be blasted by the end of the show. This guy gives a speech at every group date, every one-on-one date. He's given speeches, and he has always got his hand, like, to me, it's like 2 inches too high up their thigh. They sit down, and he is hands-on immediately. They seem to be okay with it, but something I've noticed. See you next week.